Yo, what's up? I'm alive. I think we are live. I need to test something. 1 second. Hello, I'm late. I went to gym and then I came home and then I saw I had no food, so I was 15 minutes late. Gonna blow my nose. I'm Luke, yeah. Aw, that's funny. What's up? What's up? What's up? 1 second. I'm gonna try something. Okay, let's see. Does this work? Wait for it. Hello?
Checking if TDS works.
Let's fucking go! DTS works! I just gave myself 2 euros, by the way. I didn't want to bait this time for donation. So now, masters, if you want to give me money, it works. Okay, I fixed it. I also spent time fixing it before I game. Yeah, I'm gonna get like 1 euro from it. No, I'm gonna get like 1 euro 30 cents. I get 70%. Okay, let's go. I was checking, Masters is XP farming, is always on top. Nobody can beat Masters on XP farm. Okay, we are at chapter 117, I think. Let me check. Reading till what? Until 9:30 my time, which is like 3 hours. I'm sure there were better ways to check. Last time I checked through the program, it worked, but when someone donated, it didn't work. Yeah. Sergey? Yeah, that's the plan, Sergey. I also want to make theory videos. I'll start doing them soon as well. Okay. Donating 50 cents? No. For some reason, you can't make a message. It has to be $2 or more. If you donate 1 euro or $1, you can't put a message. So you can't donate 50 cents. 2 euros for me is minimum. Unfortunately. One second, guys. I ran out of food. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm actually sorry, man. Well, if I send €1, I can't add a message. If I send €2, I can add a message. And so on, right? But €1 you can't send. It's a YouTube thing, I think. Right? There's a moth in my room and it's pissing me off. I was chasing it earlier for a minute. So if a moth comes on the screen, no, I've been fighting it for a little bit. One second. Anyway. Last time, a lot of things happened. We learned that there were no oil in this world, which made up some theories. We had some detectives work out that the person that Klein saw at the market was a mental asylum doctor. Dexter Guderian. There we go. His name is written right here, right? So apparently he's a Beyonder as well, right? Also, we have that apothecary guy who's a Beyonder. And yeah, I mean, none of this stuff was inside of the donghua, so it is really interesting to me. Also, at the same time, we got more about Madame Force, about her being on the apprentice pathway. We don't know what sequence, but I want to go back to Backland to study more about her and see if we're going to have a prison break-in or not, or breakout, rather. We have to break in first and then break out, right? Anyway, let's go. Let's start reading. Contact. Dexter Guderian, a doctor of the Green Hill Mental Asylum. Klein silently repeated what the detective had said, and started to think about the ways he could interact with this doctor, whom he suspected to be a spectator from the psychology alchemist. Yeah. He didn't want to take too much of a risk on this matter. He didn't want the Nighthawks to discover that he was problematic. He didn't want to lose the life we had now over a mere exchange of information and resources. Furthermore, this person was most probably a spectator. Anyone who hadn't undergone special training won't be able to hide their motives and thoughts from a person like that. I'll get a proxy, making me appear a little more mysterious. No, the more people involved, the easier it is there to be problems. Yes, perhaps I can hide the truth within the truth. I let that doctor know of my thoughts and feelings through my expression and body language, but not the whole truth. Oh, interesting, Klein, wow. Episode 3 was trash? What are we talking about? One Punch Man? One Punch Man hate is overhated, I'm just saying. Someone who hasn't seen One Punch Man Season 3, by the way. As Detective Henry described Dexter Guderian, when Klein thought about what methods he could use to minimize risk without affecting the results he wanted. Slowly, he found inspiration in a detective film he had once seen. What detective film? From Sherlock Holmes? Well, I can try that, but I'll have to practice it repeatedly. Yeah? Practice what? Klein? Well, I can try that, but I'll have to practice it repeatedly. Klein nodded inwardly before directing his full concentration on Detective Henry had to say. Minimize risk, he means? Is music too loud? The only reason, by the way... Okay, I'm not gonna say it. Because this is gonna make trauma, I'm not gonna say it. Henry cleared his throat and said, "We are still working on the request involving the Red Chimney. You should know that there are many buildings in Dingen that have similar characteristics. Of course, it would be much easier if you could provide us with more clues." Klein laughed dryly. I wouldn't have had to make the request if I had more clues. Unless this long investigation had depressed him, for the person behind the scenes had obviously noticed Klein's divinations and had more than enough time to find another hideout. Thus, all he could do was hope that he could find relevant clues from the information of all the tenants. And that alone cost £7. Just the thought of it made him feel the pinch. Klein grabbed his cane and left Detective Henry finish his report. First time, kinda nervous commenting. You're cute. Hello, welcome, observer. At 20 minutes to 9 on Saturday morning, in an office of the Green Hill Mental Asylum, Dr. Guderian, who was wearing gold-rimmed spectacles, removed his jacket and hat and hung them on the clothes rack. He had just picked up his tin of coffee powder when he heard knocking on the door. "Please come in," Daxter said casually. The half-closed door opened. A young man wearing a black trench coat entered. Daxter recognized the person that walked in, so he asked, puzzled, "Good morning, you are?" Klein closed the door, took off his hat and pressed it against his chest before bowing. Okay, here we go. Klein's plan going in motion right here. Kinda giving hints he's a Beyonder, right? Not putting the full truth. "Good morning, Dr. Daxter. Please forgive me for taking the liberty to visit without any warning. I am probationary officer Inspector Klein Moretti of the Alba Police Department. These are my ID documents and badge." "Inspector?" Doctor muttered softly as he received Klein's ID documents and badge. "Special Operations Department." He looked up slowly, his eyes calm as if he was scrutinizing something. Short black hair, pupils, slightly darker than brown, a scholarly aura, no ill intent at the moment. Okay, I'm imagining him in my head right now. Bro, the moth is just flying about, man. Pupils slightly darker than brown, a scholarly aura. Okay. Wait, is it a little bit scuffed the screen? Better. Daxter returned the items and pointed to the chair on the other side of the table. "Please, have a seat, officer. How might I assist you?" Klein sat down and placed his cane on the side. He slowly put away his documents and badge, then smiled. "Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm also a member of the Indian City Nighthawks team." Ooh, okay. Okay. Specializing in dealing with incidents involving supernatural. "Good morning, Mr. Spectator." Ooh. Before he finished his sentence, he wasn't surprised to see Daxter's pupils constrict. Daxter retracted his hand, looking like he was about to escape. "Officer, I don't understand what you mean." Daxter forced out a few words, almost unable to maintain his warmth. I don't like jokes like this. Perhaps you should call security." Klein slowly took out his revolver from his underarm holster and smiled unchanging. "Mr. Daxter, I know that you can see my confidence and that I do not have any ill intent. Honestly speaking, I wasn't too sure myself, but your reaction gave me the answer I needed. Every sentence I said just now is true," Klein added in his heart. Oh my god! Aura farming! Jeez! Daxter relaxed lightly, his gaze shooting toward the revolver. He asked, confused, I find it hard to understand why you came looking for me. I don't think that I revealed anything." Klein laughed and replied, "It was just a coincidence, or perhaps fate wanted us to meet. We ran into each other on the underground market at the Evil Dragon Bar, but you didn't notice me back then. You were smart to purchase supplementary ingredients for the potion first, but since I am familiar with that formula, you caught my attention." Daxter suddenly exhaled as if he just lost the motivation to defend himself. "I see. Thought I was careful enough to think that." After muttering to himself, he looked into Klein's eyes and said, "Officer, I know that you're not here to arrest me. What is your true motive for being here?" Ooh, because he's spectator, he can tell. With a relaxed expression, Klein said, "I am different from the other Nighthawks. I don't believe the Beyonders. I don't believe that the Beyonders not within our ranks are criminals in the making. It is not fair to those who adhere to the law." Daxter changed his posture. He loosened up and said, "The world would be at peace if the other Nighthawks, managed by Punishers and Machinery High Mind, acted like you. You know of other members Nighthawks, Managed Punishers and Machinery High Mind?" Klein feigned surprise. "This is not something a person who became a Beyonder by mistake should know. There must be an organization behind you." He leaned back and said with a smile, "Psychology alchemists?" He casually watched Daxter's expression contort as he said those words. I could see that you were anticipating my answer, yet I still missed the bait and fell into your linguistic trap, Daxter said in frustration. Play, back to reading Orv. Okay. Bye. Have fun. He started to notice that Spectre's state wasn't omnipotent. He could tell why the other party was here, but didn't mean he understood the specifics. I see, okay. So he's sequence 9, right? Klein stroked the cylinder of his revolver and said, Doctor, I need to have a honest conversation that can start with me. I don't believe that Beyonders not under management are potential criminals, but I agree that every Beyonder must be registered and monitored. This is a precaution against the risk of Beyonders losing control. It's to avoid the occurrence of something even more dangerous. I won't disrupt your normal life, but I hope that there can be a limited operation between us. Oh my god, Klein is smart! He's fishing for info. Oh my god, he's doing this so he can report back to Klein. Right? He wants to monitor him himself. To get better understanding of the Beyonder world. Because, you know, we had a mishap in the previous Tarot Club meeting where there's something that Klein didn't know. And just like to Olga, he said, this is not something you must know right now, right? It got lucky to him that there's a question that he didn't know later on in the meetings, because otherwise, if it was the very first meeting or second meeting, Olga would have, you know, become smart. Limited cooperation, Daxter asked as if thinking about something. Klein let out a soft chuckle. Yes, limited. For example, tell me about your condition regularly. You should know that it is possible to save someone who has not completely lost control yet, and the Nighthawks have considerable experience in this regard. Or if you could give me clues of a Beyonder you know, or a Beyonder in your organization who is about to do something that can endanger the innocent. Or if you would like to exchange something for items that you could make more use of. This is a perk I'm giving you. You should know what perks mean. Interesting. I wonder if Daxter would be maybe a potential Tarot Club member in the future. Also, not to worry about being suddenly prosecuted by members of the Nighthawks, Man and Punishers, or Machine when you high mind one day. You can live your life in joy and stability. We will give you we can give you something you can use to prove your identity. You can use it when you have no other option left. Daxter listened silently. It was a while before he said, "You want me to betray my organization?" "No, not betray," Klein said sincerely. Jesus, the music. Klein said sincerely, "This is the protection of justice, morals, and kindness. You are stopping something evil, merciless, and bloody. Other than that, I won't ask you to betray the secrets of our nation you are in." Daxter thought for a moment, as if feeling better now. There was an excuse. He was silent for a few seconds before he extended his right hand. "Here's to successful cooperation." Klein shook his hand with the free hand and said, "A successful cooperation." He paused for a moment before chuckling. "Doctor, can you tell me if you're a member of the Psychology Alchemist?" "Yes." Daxter nodded. Klein, who hadn't deactivated his spirit vision since he entered, didn't see any changes in the colors of his emotions, thus he asked discreetly, "How did you join the Psychology Alchemist?" Okay, so, I mean, Audrey wants this info, but I'm not sure if the fool is gonna tell this to Audrey. Poor Daxter was left with the donghua. Interesting, yeah. That's so sad. Daxter looked into his eyes and said, "I discovered that there was a patient of this asylum who could see the right through me when I was tending to him. His clear mind was nothing like a lunatic. His name is Hood Eugen! The guy who was working together with Lanevus. Holy shit. Eugen." Klein committed the name of the memory and chatted with Daxter a little longer. He's a sequence 7 psychologist, right? Klein my monitor just turned off. Klein committed to the name memory and chatted with Daxter a little longer, deciding on a secret way to communicate and meet up. Potential Tarot Club member? He didn't exchange matters regarding potions, formulas, and rumors. I mean, we already have a spectator in Tarot Club, so probably not. For the time being, at an appropriate moment, he bade farewell and put away his revolver before leaving Daxter's office. Daxter exhaled after he saw Klein's back disappear from his field of vision. He slumped into his chair, feeling a little agonized and a little relaxed. Well, I do think, by the way, psychiatrist and psychologist. Okay, yeah, we know what the difference. My prediction is, by the way, that we're not gonna have any Dark Club members who are on the same pathway as the current members, because I do feel like there are 22 chairs. I feel like at the end of like volume 7 we're gonna have 22 members and every sequence member, maybe, right? That's what I'm thinking. And that's why I don't think Daxter is gonna be a member. 36 Sutland Street inside Blackthorn Security Company. Seated behind his desk, Don swept the area with his grey eyes and asked, "What happened?" Klein, who was late by about half an hour, organized his thoughts and said, "Captain, I found a Beyonder and confirmed that he is a member of the Psychology Alchemist. He's an Orthodox doctor and is willing to cooperate with us. I think it's best to maintain the status quo. He will help us learn more about the current condition of the Association of Psychology Alchemists." Anyway, now that I said that, by the way, I do think Susie is not gonna be a member then, unfortunately. Right? I don't think Susie can be a member because we already have Audrey, which makes me actually sad. Well, Susie can be right-hand man, right-hand dog of Audrey, right? But maybe Force then. I mean, Don Smith died. Wait, let me think who else can be a member that we know of. Don Smith died. Rest in peace. Also, Unc Neil died. Maybe Leonard. Maybe also Isaac. I think Isaac is pretty much confirmed because of the trailer in for the special episode that they said there's a secret organization that has a member from the death pathway, which I think the secret organization they were saying is Dark Club, and I think maybe it's Isaac. Okay. After pausing for a few seconds, Klein added, "I want to develop him into an informant for the Nighthawks or a hidden external member." Okay, smart Klein. Let's see what Don says. "The third informant came from the Intis language. It was created by Emperor Cell." Interesting, okay. Don nodded slowly and said, "You handled the situation well, but it will be best to inform me when you face such a situation in the future. Give me the doctor's information and written account on the way you handle the situation. I will give him something he can use to prove his identity. Also, don't speak of this to Leonard and the rest. Even though they are trustworthy teammates, the protocol clearly requires us to keep this close. You will be in charge of contacting that doctor in the future." Klein exhaled silently and replied with a smile. Alright, Klein was worried what Don Smith is gonna say, right? Created by yourself, plagiarized. And you will become a Dark Club member? I created the Grey Fog. I am the Lord of Mysteries. Okay, August. The name or a month? Oh, month maybe. My PC is crashing. Hello, what the frick happened? What the frick? That was so weird. What? Hello, can you hear me? My second monitor closed for a second. All my like windows went on my main monitor. That was so weird. Why is PC running a sabotage? August. Let's go. That's God. Thank God. I had blue screen like once or twice in the last month, and I'm scared it might happen during the reactions. Okay, here we go. August. So we have an informant that knows Hood Eugen. Things are, you know, connecting. The dots are connecting. The moth? Where? I'm actually scared of the moth, by the way. I have like phobia of spiders and insects. Not as bad though. I was chasing it down for 5 minutes not yesterday, before the stream. August. Time flew by and Tingin bade farewell to the end of summer. The temperature hovered between 26 and 27 degrees Celsius. That's still hot. Whoosh. Klein stood up from the bathtub and took a stride towards sending water droplets to the floor. He stood there naked. Hello. Looking down at his abs. Hello. He flexed and saw prominent muscle lines appear. Hello. That was the result of his daily training. I'm imagining it, by the way. That's the result of his daily training. Besides, he appeared a lot more energetic. And just today, his combat teacher, Gawain, had started teaching him the basic footwork for punching and the techniques of delivering force. If that moth will give beyond their powers, would you eat it? Of course. Klein stepped on the floor barefooted in the bathroom, either sliding forward or retreating before dodging to the right and swinging his fist while he made a defensive gesture. While being naked, by the way. Phew, he stopped and left out a breath happily, took the towel next to him and wiped himself down. After getting... I will eat it anyway. After getting in touch with Daxter, the doctor in the mental asylum, Klein seemed to escape from coincidences for 2 whole weeks. Buddy. Without the constant barrage of supernatural incidents, his life became stable. He received his paycheck on time, researched mysticism in depth, trained his marksmanship and fighting skills, developed new cooking recipes, slowly gathered decent utensils and decorations with Benson and Melissa, asked his teammates about supernatural cases in the past, divined for people who came to the club and strictly followed the principles he figured out. Oh my god, Klein's life is working out. That's cool. For now. This is the calm before the storm, guys. This is the 2-week period, no coincidences. After this, coincidence every single day. Eats moth, gets assassin pathway, cries. Why do you cry? That made him more stable. If it wasn't for the late nights in which he missed Earth, the red chimney that had yet to be uncovered, or the misfortune cloth puppet's picture that still appeared in his dreams occasionally, he would have started getting used to his current life and think of it affectionately. During that time, 3 Tarot Club gatherings were No! Wait. During that time, 3 Tarot Club's gatherings were convened, but Klein didn't receive any new pages of Roselle's diary. We skipped 3, even the novel skips meetings? However, according to Justice's explanation, she had gotten to know 2 Beyonders and she was getting in touch with them consistently. When she got into their circle of acquaintances, it was likely that she could trade for more pages of Roselle's diary. Exactly. The Hanged Man also expressed that he had returned to land and was dealing with some matters. He would begin looking for more as soon as he had more free time. Besides Justice, what about Derek? Any new Derek info? Besides Justice felt that 2 Beyonders whom she knew were potential targets to join the gathering. They both had decent IDs as cover with certain but different channels of information as well as principles and unique characteristics. They were not the kind of people that would sell out a secret. The only problem was that they were only Sequence 9 Beyonders, which was too suitable for a high-end secret org like the Tarot Club. High-end, the leader is Sequence 9 too right now. High-end secret org sounds more like a pyramid scheme. Klein only let out a heavy sigh to cover up the fact that he was at loss for words to reply to Miss Justice. Complacency, he could only agree to observe 2 Beyonders further. Of course, Justice wasn't the innocent and romantic maiden from before. She kept her guard up and never mentioned the names and traits of the 2 Beyonders. So, 2 ones we don't know, because Force, he already told about Force to Klein. She was afraid that the Hanged Man would be able to ID her through that. Miss Justice said that she clearly feels like the size of the potion digesting. She might need another 3 to 4 weeks until she completes her acting as a spectator. My scheduled acquisition of the telepathy's formula has to be brought forward. Klein threw aside the towel that he used to dry himself and put on his clothes as he thought about the Tarot Club from the day before. In the last 20 days, he had only met Daxter once. He had the idea of haste makes waste. Haste makes waste, so he merely chatted about the doctor's state and asked unimportant matters about the psychology alchemist. Given the speed which Justice was digesting the potion, he had no choice but to begin thinking about how to get the formula of Sequence 8 telepathies from Daxter earlier. Klein buttoned his shirt and took another dry towel to wrap around his head to absorb the water in his hair. Compared to Justice, he was digesting the syrup potion even faster than expected. By this week, the sounds that he shouldn't hear and things that he shouldn't see had already vanished while engaging in cogitation or spirit vision. Little son, I wanna see more Derek, man. Flipping over the towel, Klein tried his hair again. He lifted his head and looked at the door and muttered to himself. The zero principles that I figured out are really efficient. Next week, I should be able to digest the potion entirely by next week. I have no idea where to get a single horn of matured Hornatsis Grey Mountain goat. Probably on Hornatsis. And a complete stalk of human-faced rose required by the clone formula. Maybe I could do as Lady Dali did and send in a special application, but that will definitely attract the attention of the higher-ups. I guess maybe I'm gonna meet Cedric soon. No, not Cedric. What was his name again? Cedric? And the sequence 6? Cedric? Wait, what the fuck? Cedric? Am I actually going schizophrenic? Sesamir! Yes, Sesamir. Exactly. Jeez. Chris did Sesamir, yeah. That's an higher up. Why Cedric? Huh. That he will definitely attract attention of the higher-ups, and I want to develop my own base. The believer from the Aurora Order in the police department was found too. But I have yet to find out who Mr. Said is. So, there was a snake in the police force? Who was it? It better not be bitch, right? The believer from the Aurora Order in the public police department was found too, you know? A spirit warlock, yeah. Not even close. Cedric Sesamir. Cedric, yeah, I guess you're right. Henry said that he will complete the red chimney task before the end of this week. My private stash of money has returned to slightly more than £7. Ooh, so at least I don't have to worry about making the final payment. My goat bitch, he would, man. Some of the information of houses and tenants that he provided before didn't seem to have any abnormalities, but I have no time to investigate them one by one. Perhaps I could see which red chimney houses have gotten new tenants recently. That's the one way to look at it. Okay. Sitting silently for another half a minute, he put on his black trousers, bow tie, and underarm holster. Oh, wait a minute. Hello, Lucy Rem, how are you? I didn't notice you came. Hello. Bitch Mountain Batten, yeah. My favorite police officer. He then picked up his sweaty night training suit from the floor, he tossed it to the laundry basket, he opened the door and exited the bathroom. He had just finished his Wednesday afternoon combat training and he was still at his teacher Gawain's place. Hello, Mr. Moretti, Gawain's maidservant. Hello, Mr. Moretti. Gawain's maidservant happened to pass by and she quickly bowed. Klein nodded slightly and pointed to the messy bathroom. Could you clean this up, please? Of course, sir. The clothes will be taken care of by the laundry maid. She'll come over at 6. The maidservant held her head low when she answered. Laundry maids had no accommodation or food included, so they weren't hired by only one household. Oh, they go house by house. They were normally contracted to handle the laundry from several households. Either they rushed around daily, washing one household's clothes before going to the next, or they will gather all the clothes on different households and take care of it all the same time, before sending it all back. Only then could they barely make a living. Oh, jeez. Klein didn't say much, but returned to the living room to bid farewell to the owner who was sitting on the rocking chair. He saw Gawain nodding lethargically. Okay, guys, time to get smarter. Gawain? I pronounce it as Gawain. Oh my god, I have to watch a video on it. It's not even Google doesn't even show it up. Lethargically. And it means sluggish, slow, dull, or lacking energy. Gawain? a light brown blanket covering his legs, and the Awa Evening News in his hands. Is he old? He's old, right? Klein knew for a fact that the gentleman bathing in the setting sun glow was in his early 50s, but his listlessness made him seem like he was already in his 80s. Jeez. During combat training, Gawain maintained silence and only gave pointers when he needed to. He wasn't one for casual chatting. Klein was so exhausted from the daily training that he had no intention of trying to engage in conversation. Thus, their relationship remained distant. From his demonstrations, teacher Gawain's strength is still quite terrifying, and his steps are swift too. I reckon it won't be a problem. Why did my monitor just turn off? For him to fight. I reckon it won't be a problem for him to fight 3 of me. Old man, imagine, old man throwing hands. He has the bay from the police station, and he has also bought a plot of land in a village out in the Tingen suburbs that provides a fixed rental. He hires a chef, maidservant, and a laundry maiden. In the foodaholic empire on Earth, a man in his 50s with such wealth would have been traveling the world. True. Klein looked away from Gawain and shook his head. Then he went to the clothes rack to take down his top hat and black trench coat. After he tidied himself up, he took his cane and exited the house. He walked along the weed-covered stone path towards the gates. Just then he saw that there was a 2-wheeled carriage stopped outside the metal fence. There was a man with a familiar face standing next to it. Leonard? Klein muttered, looking suspiciously towards his messy-haired Nighthawk's teammate. Leonard was dressed in a white shirt, black trousers, and buttonless leather boots. As he twirled his hat in his hands, when he saw Klein come out from the house, he smiled and asked, "Are you pleasantly surprised?" Only surprised without any joy, Klein ignored Leonard's inappropriate behavior and looked into fake poet's clean eyes. What happened? Leonard put on his hat and said, "Captain wants you to work with me and Fry. Let's talk about it on the way." Alright, Klein followed him into the garage. As the scene outside the carriage flew past, Leonard took up the document bag by his side and threw it at Klein. Klein caught it steadily and took out the document. He then started reading carefully. August 11th, 11 p.m. at a workhouse in Westborough, the bankrupt Salu's attempted arson to cause a tragedy, but in the end he only managed to burn himself to death. Ugh. August 11th, 10 p.m. Harbor workers Seed jumped in a Dustock River and ended his poverty-stricken life. August 11th, 8 p.m. Iron Cross Street, Lower Street. Mrs. Lois earned a living by selling matchboxes side of Southern Disease. Klein was puzzled when he read the first 2 incidents. He found the deaths very ordinary and common. Not only should it have been beneath the attention of the Nighthawks, even the police force would avoid wasting resources looking into such obvious cause of death. However, when he read down the list, he slowly creased his eyebrows. After 2 pages, he suddenly lifted his head and looked at Leonard. Isn't this too many? And the number of ordinary deaths reached a staggering amount. It was difficult to call it normal. This is the work of the Demoness sect, right? For once, Leonard nodded seriously and said, "The number of death incidents within the past 2 weeks are 5 times the normal rate." When the Tingen police headquarters tabulated the data, they realized the problem... Wait, this is Leonard, sorry. The number of death incidents within the past 2 weeks were 5 times the normal rate. When the Tingen police headquarters tabulated the data, they realized the problem and quickly passed it over to us, as well as the mandate punishers and the machinery hive mind. Although these death incidents appeared normal during initial investigation, Captain believes he should investigate them once more. It might require the help of divination or ritualistic magic. Lane said with a look of enlightenment. "I understand." Leonard snapped his fingers and said, "You, me, and Fry are in a team. It's waiting for us." Cringe. Leonard is cringe. His ST voice, what? Isn't that Leonard's voice? Like, Leonard snapped his fingers and said, "You, me, and Fry are in a team. He's waiting for us at Iron Cross Street, Lower Street. Sika, Ryan, and Old Neil are another team investigating corresponding incidents in the North Borough. Captain is staying in the security company to respond to any emergencies." Not that zesty? Was it less zesty before? Did they make it more zesty? Okay, Klein nodded solemnly and suddenly thought of something. He quickly asked, "Can I drop by my place and leave a note?" Eldeli's brother insisted that he couldn't dine at home that night because something has cropped up. Leonard laughed. "No problem. It's on the way." With that, Klein calmed down and read over the death incident again, intending to find a link among the various names, times, and cause of death. Then he suddenly realized something. This is my first group mission after becoming a Nighthawk. Ooh, it's way too zesty. Okay, I'll tone it down a little bit. XS Fanbur Scratcher 92. Okay, great chapter again. We learned more about Gawain. We saw Klein naked in the bathroom. That was the height of this chapter. Also, apparently we skipped 3 Carrot Club meetings, but nothing happened. Audrey also has 2 Beyonders that, you know, she is trying to recruit to the Carrot Club, and let's see what happens next. Also, August is approaching. The True Lower Street, 119. We saw naked Klein. I wish. That's gonna be OnlyFans content. You missed the yeah, you missed naked Klein, yeah. I'm sorry. Let me quickly also leave a Discord link in the chat. 1 second. I forgot. There we go. Let's go. The True Lower Street. Dingen City to Daffodil Street. Klein, who had left a note, locked the door and walked briskly towards Leonard Mitchell, who was waiting by his side of the road. Leonard's short black hair had grown a little over the month, and the lack of any... Short black hair?! Huh. Had grown over the month, and the lack of any grooming made it look messy. Despite that, his messy hair still complemented his decent looks. Emerald-colored eyes and poetic vibes. It exuded a different sense of beauty. Leonard is hot, by the way. Indeed, any hairstyle depends on the face. Klein lampooned inwardly. He pointed in the direction of Iron Cross Street and asked, "Is Fry waiting for us there?" "Yes." Leonard smoothed his tan-tucked shirt and said casually, "Did you notice any clues when you were looking at the documents?" "Is this better?" Klein held his cane in his left hand as he walked along the side of the road and said, "No, I cannot find anything common in their names, locations, or causes of death. You should know that any rituals involving evil gods or devils must be conducted within a certain time frame of or using a special method." Leonard touched the custom-made revolver hidden underneath his shirt by his waist and chuckled. "That isn't an absolute rule. In my experience, some evil gods or devils are easily satisfied, as long as they have a particular interest in what's being asked of them. Also, a good number of deaths seem normal. You have to omit them before we can arrive at the real answer." Klein glanced at him and said, "That's why the captain asked us to investigate once more, to eliminate the normal incidents." "Leonard, your tone and description tell me that you have considerable experience in this area, but you only have been a member of the Nighthawks for 4 years, with an average of 2 supernatural incidents a month. Furthermore, a large number of those were simple and easy to solve." I always felt that Leonard Mitchell was a little weird. Oh, the reason why he's so goddamn good is because he has a shadow. He's an old man, like, teaching him. He always felt that Leonard Mitchell was a little weird and mysterious. Not only was he always suspicious of him, believing that there was something about him. In addition, his demeanor also changed from time to time. Sometimes quiet, sometimes arrogant, sometimes flippant, sometimes flippant, sometimes stayed. Could it be that you also had a fortuitous encounter? An encounter that makes you view yourself as a star in the play? Klein made a rough deduction based on all the movies, novels, and dramas he had watched in the past. Yeah, true. Upon hearing the question, Leonard laughed and said, "That's because you're not a full-fledged Nighthawk yet. You're still in the training phase. The Holy Cathedral compiles a record of all supernatural encounters experienced by cathedrals of the different dioceses, and it hands it down to its members once every 6 months. Aside from mysticism lessons, you can submit an application to the captain and request to enter Chinese gate to read these records. Klein nodded enlightenment. The captain was never mentioned this to me. The captain has never mentioned this to me. Okay, interesting. Kleinhand had the opportunity to enter China's gate up to this point. Ronald chuckled and said, I thought that you were already used to captain's style. To think that you were still naively waiting for him to remind you. Upon saying that, he added meaningfully, we must be cautious of the captain if there ever comes a day when he remembers everything. Will that mean a loss of control? Klein nodded his expression seriously. He then asked, is the forgetfulness unique to the captain? I had thought that it was a problem brought up by the Cephas sequence. Burning the midnight oil usually leads to memory loss. More accurately, it's a symptom unique to a nightmare, with dreams and reality in their mind. It's often hard for... So does that mean Sesame is also forgetful? It's often hard for a person to differentiate between what's real and what isn't. Doesn't need to remember what isn't part of reality. Leonard wanted to elaborate further, but they had already arrived at Iron Cross Street and found corpse collector Fry waiting for them at the public carriage station. Diocese is diocese or diuxis? Diuxis? Thank you, username. You're actually... By the way, you missed the RMGI stream today morning. So I had to meet like some kind of Chinese guy mod. Fry was wearing a round black hat and trench coat of a similar color with a leather briefcase in his hand. He was so pale that it made Klein suspect if he will soon collapse at any time. His icy aura made everyone else waiting for the carriage keep the distance from him. Yeah, username you have. Is it because you wanna watch a video or were you busy? After nodding to each other, the three grouped up silently and walked past the Smerian Bakery. Oh, Smerian Bakery, before turning onto Lower Street of Iron Cross Street. Fry is lonely, yeah. True, poor Fry. They're immediately faced with a tin. Merchants selling clam soup, seared fish, ginger beer, and fruits were shouting hysterically for attention. 1 pound fish, causing the pedestrians to involuntarily slow down. If you know the 1 pound fish meme, you're ancient, by the way. Ah, I see, username. We're doing 8 episodes on Tuesday. It was already a little past 5. People were turning to Iron Cross Street and the sides of the streets were becoming crowded. Some children were mixed in the crowd, coldly watching everything, placing their attention on the pockets of the pedestrians. Of course, username will get it, he's British. And frequently came here for a cheap cooked food and was familiar with the streets, especially since he had lived in a nearby apartment in the past. He reminded the group, be careful of thieves. No one smiled. You need not mind them. He pulled on his shirt, jeez, and adjusted the holster of his gun, revealing his revolver. Suddenly all the gases fixed on them shifted away. The pedestrians around them instinctively made way. Klein froze for a moment, then caught up to Leonard and Fry. All the gazes fixed on them shifted away. Oh, interesting. Then caught up to Leonard and Fry with the large steps. He lowered his head, trying hard to avoid being noticed by anyone he knew. Benson and Melissa still had dealings with the neighbors here. After all, they hadn't moved too far away. The three made their way to the past area the three made their way past the area that was had. Is this a misspelling or is this a language skill issue? That was had many peddlers and turned into the lower street of Iron Cross Street. The true lower street of Iron Cross Street. The pedestrians here were all dressed in old, ragged clothes. Oh, this is the slums of the slums. Thank you for the follow. They were cautious of strangers wearing bright and beautiful clothes, yet there was also greed in their eyes, like vultures eyeing a meal, waiting to strike at any time. But Leonard's revolver prevented any accidents from happening. Let's first investigate the death from yesterday. I'll begin with Mrs. Lawis, a lady who glued matchboxes together for living. Leonard flipped his notes and pointed to a place not far away.
Leonard's voice is not zesty enough. Andu.
That fucking scared me, man. Oh my god, thank you for the 179 stones. Okay. God. That scared me. Oh, that's like I should make like a jump scare. Like if you donate $5, it's gonna jump scare or something. Hello, Envoy. Thank you for the $2, by the way. Thank you so much, Masters. Oh, hello, Envoy. How are you? Actually, my heart is racing, man. Thank you so much for the $2. In Rag, this is the slums of the slums. They were cautious of strangers wearing bright and beautiful clothes. Yet they were also greed in their eyes, like vultures eyeing a meal, waiting to strike at any time. Oh, these are like really poor people. But Leonard's revolver prevented any accidents from happening. Let's first investigate the death from yesterday. We'll begin with Mrs. Lois, a lady who glued matchboxes with her for a living. Leonard flipped his notes and pointed to a place not far away. First floor, number 134. As the three of them walked forward, children who were playing in the street and dressed in shabby clothing quickly hid by the corner of the road. They observed them with full eyes of curiosity and fear. Damn. Oof, look at their arms and legs, thin as matchsticks. Leonard sighed. He entered building number 134. Damn, that's actually sad. Air that was mixture of numerous scents entered Klein's nostrils. He could faintly detect a stench of urine, sweat and mold, as well as the smell of burning charcoal. Klein couldn't help but pinch his nose. He then saw Bitch Mountain Button! Yes! Return of the King! Bitch Mountain Button! Who had been waiting there for them. Officer Mountain Button had a brownish yellow mustache and was envious of Leonard's rank of inspector. Sir, I want you ask Lois to wait in his room, Bitch Mountain Button said with his unique, shrill voice. Yes, the goat is here! He didn't recognize Klein, who was now looked more energized and proper. All he cared was sucking up all he cared about was sucking up the three officers in front of him as he led them to the Lois family on the first floor. It was a simple apartment. There was a bunk bed laid up right inside the room, and a desk filled with glue and hard paper on the right side. The corner of the room was piled full of frames for matchboxes, while an old... Okay, Lucian. Thank you. The corner of the room was piled full of frames of matchboxes, while an old cabinet sat on the left, acting as a storage place for both clothes and cutlery. A stove, toilet, and a small amount of coal and timber occupied the two sides of the door, while the center of the room was occupied by two dirty mattresses. A man was sleeping under a torn blanket, leaving no space for anyone to walk. Jesus. A lady lay on the lower level of the bunk bed, her skin ice cold. It was clear that he had lost all signs of life. Besides, damn, it's depressing, man. Besides the corpse of the man in his 30s, he had oily hair, looked dispirited, and his eyes had lost their luster. Lois, these three officers are here to examine the body and ask questions. Sorry. Lois, these three officers are here to examine their body and ask you questions. Bitch Mountbatten shouted, without any regard for the sleeping man. Damn, rude. The dispirited man looked weakly and asked in surprise, "Didn't someone already examine the corpse and question me?" He was dressed in grayish blue worker's uniform, which had visible signs of being mended multiple times. "Answer when I tell you to! Why do you have so many questions?" Damn, bitch. You're acting kinda rude, man. These are poor people. These are people from the slums. Like, be respectful, bitch. I'm gonna get demonetized by saying the B word so much. Bitch Mountain Batten priorited the man, then turned to Leonard, Klein, and Fry. "Officer, this is Lois. The person on the bed is his wife. She's also deceased. According to a preliminary analysis, she died from sudden illness." Klein and the rest tiptoed to the edge of the bed. The high-nosed, thin-lipped Fry did not say anything with his cold demeanor. Instead, he patted Lewis gently, signaling for the man to make way so he could examine the body. Klein looked at the sleeping man and asked, "This is?" "My tenant." Lewis rubbed his forehead as he said, The rent for this room is 3 solid 10 pence a week. I'm only a worker at the harbour, and my wife made 2 and quarter pence per crate of blue matchboxes. Each crate has up to 130 boxes. We also have a child. We only rent the rest of the space someone else. We only charge a solid a week for the mattress. I have a tenant who's helping out the theatre, and he's not back before then at night. He's always rides the mattress in the daytime to this man. He's the person who watches over the gate of the theatre at night, so he only pays 6 pence every week. Hearing the other party stammer as he explained, Klein couldn't help but look at the crate in the corner of the room. One crate had 130 matchboxes and only earned them 2.25 pence at the cost of 2 pounds of black bread. How many crates should she manage a day? Damn, I'm gonna cry, man. During the Victorian era, a crate is 144 matchboxes. The labor was worth 2.25 pence. A woman who works the entire day can do 7 crates. So 14 pence a day. Sheesh. Leonard surveyed the surrounding and asked, "Was your wife acting abnormally prior to her death?" Lois, who had been asked similar questions, went out the left side of his left chest and said, "Well, last week, well, perhaps the week before, she said she was stuffy in this area and couldn't catch her breath." The precursor of the heart condition, a normal death, Klein interrupted. "Did you see how she died?" Lois recalled. "She stopped working at sunset. Candles and gas are more expensive than matchboxes. She said that she was very tired and asked me to talk to the kids and let her rest. When I saw her again, she had already stopped breathing." Lois could no longer hide his grief and pain when he said that. Klein and Leonard asked several questions but could not find anything unnatural about the death. After they looked at each other, Leonard said, "Mr. Lois, please wait outside for a few minutes. We are going to conduct a true examination of the corpse. I don't think you want to see that." Oh. Why always poor people suffer the most, man? 120, workhouse. 1 second, guys. Peak voice acting? Really? I thought like doing it normally is boring, so... Also, if you're enjoying the reaction, can you please like this live stream so it gets recommended out to other people? Like let's aim for 25 likes. Thanks, guys. And I saw job as a VA, yeah. That's by the way, this is not a bald spot, by the way. This is not a bald spot. This is just when this is where the headset is. Oh fuck, wait a second. The headset is making it. Oh god, I think the headset is making that. There's no bald spot. Guys. It's not. What the? Oh, it's from the meme. Aw, that's cute. Force. Aw, holy shit. She changed her profile picture. You did it? Oh my god. This is Lucy Rem drew this, by the way. That's so cool. That's so cute. Workhouse. Thank you guys for the likes. There's a presence of supernatural factors. Klein's eye turned normal and he looked at Leonard and Fry. Leonard suddenly chuckled. Very professional and deserving of title of seer. "Are you trying to hint at something?" Klein muttered in his head. Fry opened his suitcase and took out a silver knife and other tools. He paused and asked, "The corpse tells me that she really died of sudden night attack. Do you have any way to divine more detailed answer?" Klein nodded seriously and said, "I can attempt to combine mediumship rituals and a dream divination. Hopefully I'll be able to obtain something from Mrs. Lowis's remaining spirituality." Fry maintained his cold and reserved state. He took 2 steps back and said, "Give it a try." He turned his head sideways and looked at Klein, suddenly sighed without much fluctuation in his tone. "You're getting more and more used to this kind of situation." It's not like I wanted it. Klein had an urge to cry. He then took out the bottles of extracts, essential oils, and herbal powder. Then he quickly set up the mediumship. Let's go, Lucilem. That's so, like, cool. You are really good at throwing, by the way. Lucilem also made my profile picture, I'm just saying. Thank you so much. He chanted the honor titles of Evernight Goddess in the middle of the spirituality wall and recited his prayers in Hermes. Soon, winds spun around him and the light grew dimmer. Klein's eyes turned entirely black and he repeated the divination statement. The cause of Mrs. Lois's death. The cause of Mrs. Lois's death. He entered the dreamland while standing and saw a translucent spirit lingering around the corpse. Then he extended his illusory right hand to touch Mrs. Lois's remaining spirituality. In an instant, light burst out in front of him as scenes flashed past, one after another. There was a skinny and sallow lady dressed in ragged clothes, busily making matchboxes. She suddenly paused and held her chest. She was speaking to her 2 children. Her body wavered as she gasped for air. She was buying black bread when someone suddenly patted her. She was having the symptoms of a heart attack again and again. She was feeling weary and got into bed, but she never woke up ever again. Damn, bro. Wow. Klein observed every single detail, intending to look for a trace of the supernatural factor. But when everything ended, he still hadn't gained any clues as the blurriness shattered. Klein left the dreamland and returned to reality. He dispelled the wall of spirituality and said to the waiting Fry and amused Leonard. There were no direct symptoms. Most of these scenes revealed that Mrs. Lois had a heart alignment a long time ago. The only scene that was different was when Mrs. Lois was patted on the back by someone. Hand was fair and tender. Apparently a woman's... Oh, Mikus. Mikus? Bye, masters. Thank you for coming. Welsh family and they wouldn't call doctors unless they were very sick. Even if they were free at a free charity hospital, time is not something you can afford to lose. A day without work might mean no food on the table the next day. Leonard sighed emotionally, like a poet. Fry looked at the corpse in the bed and sighed lightly. Before Klein spoke, Leonard quickly got out his pensive state and said thoughtfully, Are you implying that supernatural factor came into play when Mrs. Lois was patted? It came from slender hand, a lady or madam? Klein nodded and replied, Yes, but this is merely my interpretation. Divination is always unclear. The conversation ended. He and Leonard stepped back to the other side of the bed and allowed Fry to take out his tools from a suitcase without any disturbance so he could do further examination. No, it's a demoness sect, right? After Fry was done, they waited as he backed up his tools. After cleaning up and covering the corpse, he turned around and said, Her death was caused by natural heart disease. There's no doubt about it. Upon hearing the conclusion, Leonard paced back and forth. He even walked to the side of the door, paused for quite a while before saying, That's it for now. Let's head over to the workhouse in Westboro. We'll see if we can find other clues. Maybe we can link the 2 incidents together. Okay, we can only hope. Klein agreed, still filled with puzzlement. Fry picked up his suitcase and while skipping and walking, he carefully went across the 2 floor mattresses without stepping on anyone's blanket. Leonard opened the door and walked out of the room first. He told Lois at the tenant, You can return home now. Klein thought for a moment before adding, Don't be in a hurry to bury the body. Wait for another day. There might be one more thorough examination. All right, officer. Lois bowed lightly and the the fucking moth! Jesus. Lois forced a smile and replied, Wait, what? Lois bowed lightly and replied in a hurry. Then feeling numb and lost, he said, Actually, I don't have the money to bury here just yet. I have to save for another few days, just a few more days. Luckily, the weather is turning cold. I was shocked and asked, Do you plan on letting the corpse remain in the room for a few days? Lois forced a smile and replied, Yeah, thankfully the weather became colder recently. I moved the body on the table at night. Oh my god, when we eat, we can carry her to the bed. Before he finished what he had to say, Frost suddenly interrupted. I have left you money for the burial next to your wife. Aww, thank you. After saying those words in absolute calmness, exited the apartment directly, unbothered by Lois's shocked expression and gratitude that followed. Klein followed closely and thought of a question. If the weather was still as hot as June or July, how could Lao be still with his wife's corpse? Pick a very dark night with a strong wind, throw the corpse in the Tusok River or the Koi River, or just dig a hole and bury her. I knew that he had law requiring a cemetery period had been established more than 1,000 years ago. At the end of their previous epoch, the 7 major churches and the imperial households from each country had approved the law in order to cut down on the number of other ghosts, zombies, and restless wraiths. Each country provided free land, while each church was in charge of keeping watch and patrolling. They only charged minimum fees for cremation and burial in order to pay for necessary labor force. But even so, the truly poor still couldn't afford it. After leaving 134 Iron Cross Street at Lower Street, the 3 Nighthawks and Bitch is coming with us. Parted ways. No! Parted ways! God damn it, man! Silently, they took a turn to the nearby workhouse in Westboro. As they got closer, Klein saw a long queue. It was just like when the people from the Fudolic Empire on Earth queued for a shop that gone viral on the internet. The place was packed. There's about 100, no, closer to 200, he muttered in surprise. He saw the people queuing were in tattered clothes with numb expressions. They only occasionally looked toward the door of the workhouse impatiently. Fry slowed down and said coldly, "There's a limit to the number of homeless poor each workhouse will accept daily. They only take them in based off the queue order. Of course, the workhouse will examine and refuse entry those who fail to meet the criteria. The economic recession in the recent months has played a part too. Living outside. Jesus Christ, dude. Those who don't manage to queue will have to figure out a way on their own," Klein asked subsequently. They also tried their luck in other workhouses. Different workhouses have different operating hours. However, each one has the same long line. Some of them would wait for 2 in the afternoon. Fry paused. The rest of the people mostly starve for a day. Then they lose their ability to find a job and fall into a vicious cycle. That leads directly to death. Those who can't withstand the hardship end up losing their struggle to stay on the good side of the law. Yikes. Klein felt silent for a few seconds before letting out a sigh. The newspaper never published any of this, Mr. Fry. Hardly ever hear you speak so much. I was once a bastard in the workhouse of the goddess. Oh, interesting. Fry maintained this cold attitude. When the 3 of them arrived at the door of the workhouse in Westboro, they showed their ID documents to the doorkeeper, who was eyeing the queuers arrogantly before they were taken into the workhouse. The workhouse was transformed from an old church. There were mattresses and hammocks all over the mess hall. The pungent scent of sweat mixed with the smell of athlete's foot permeated every corner. Jesus. In and out of the hall there were many poor families. Some swung hammers to break rocks, some picked oakum. No one was free. Or do not let poor people rely too much on workhouses and turn into scoundrels. The poor law established in 1336 enforced a rule whereby every poor person can only stay in the workhouse for 5 days at most. Any longer than that, one would be cast out. During the 5 days they have to do manual labor, such as breaking rocks or picking oakum. They're the same task the criminals imprisoned do, Fry explained to Colonel Leonard briefly without much emotion. I see. This is to stop from working them 7 days a week. Leonard opened his mouth and no one was sure if he was teasing or explaining. When they leave the workhouse, they could go to another one, of course. They might not be able to move in. Perhaps for some people, poor people are like criminals. Picking oakum, Klein was quiet. They didn't know what else to ask. The vipers of old orbs were actually great material to seal the caps in boats. Fry stopped and found a burnt mark on the ground. This is the place where the guy burned himself to death, right? A few minutes later, the rector and pastor of the workhouse rushed over. They were both men in their 40s. Salo started this fire here and only burned himself to death. Salo started the fire here and only burned himself to death, Leonard asked, pointing at the ashen mark on the ground. The rector of the workhouse was a man with a broad, bumpy forehead. He scanned the area where Inspector Mitchell was pointing with blue eyes and nodded in affirmation. Yes. Before that, did Salo's act strange in any way? The rector of the workhouse thought and said, According to the person that slept next to him, Salos had been chanting, "The Lord has given up on me. The world is too filthy. I have nothing left." Stuff those lines. He was filled with resentment and hopelessness. But no one expected him to break all the kerosene lamps and start a fire to burn the place down while everyone was sleeping. Thank the Lord someone found out in time and stopped his wicked act. Finally, Jonathan found a few people who had slept next to Salos the night before. He also found a guard that stopped the tragedy. However, those people didn't have anything new to tell them. Of course, they used spirit vision, divination, and other methods to check any of the people were lying or misleading them. It seems that Salos had the idea to take revenge and self-destruct. It seemed to be a very normal case, not wait until the director and the pastor left to express his opinion. Klein pondered and said, "My divination tells me that there wasn't any supernatural factors influencing the case." So in the donghua, by the way, all of these events were like quick compilation of showing how it happened and people dying, but in the novel it's actually like explained more in detail where Klein went in person. Klein pondered and said, "My divination tells me that there wasn't any supernatural factors influencing this case. Let's eliminate Salos' fire case temporarily." Leonard Mitchell concluded. Just when Fry suddenly said, "No, maybe there is another possibility. For example, Salos acted at the instigation of someone else, and beyond it, who didn't take any supernatural measures." Klein's eyes lit up as he echoed, "It's very possible such an instigator from before. Just as the instigator from before. Instigator Triss. Yeah, so this is work of the demoness, by the way. That won't give any connection with Mrs. Lowis's death. He thought creasing his eyebrows lightly. I guess we'll see." Chapter 121. I'm gonna go pee. You guys can go pee as well. I'll be right back. League of Legends Arena based. That's awesome, dude. Hi, Lily. Thank you for coming. You're about to see Leonard cook, by the way. This one is called Leonard's Hypothesis. After hearing Klein and Fry's guesses, Leonard tugged on his collar and paced out, saying, "Then we have to investigate everyone in the workhouse who came into contact with Salus, as well as everyone he comes across after he went bankrupt and was chased out of the house. It's very troublesome indeed. This time of the essence, let's split up and do cursory check. Let's do cursory check, then led to the third reported death in the West Borough. Lead the rest of the police." "Alright," Klein answered without hesitation. Fry didn't have any objections. He turned toward the people who... turned on the people who had been sleeping near Salus last night. Klein was about to find someone to question when he suddenly saw Leonard shooting looks at him. He was motioning at the side hall of the workhouse with his chin. "What does he want?" Klein was a little lost. He acted as though nothing bad happened. He strolled around in the hall, then laughed, then followed Leonard into the side hall while Fry was distracted. They made their way through the partition to a silent corner which had no one else around. "I have an hypothesis," Leonard suddenly said, stopping in front of a shattered window. Klein looked around in confusion. "What's your hypothesis?" Leonard with his deep green eyes, and then he returned the question. "If there were no supernatural factors, what do you think Mrs. Lowey's outcome would have been?" Normal League requires more brain cells. Arena is Ooga Booga, and so is Aram. Normal League is always superior. Sounders Rift. Klein thought for a moment, then said solemnly, the same it's just delayed by a week or two, perhaps a month, but to a family like theirs, they would have only seen the doctor when she really was at their limit. As long as her heart problems turned for the worse, there would be no way for her to be saved. And what about Salus? If he had been instigated by someone, what kind of end would we have? Leonard asked again. Klein pondered and said, "From the description and the information, Salus was already very angry about his bankruptcy. He was furious that no one saved him. I think that he would have exacted his vengeance sooner or later, but not at the people at the workhouse. He might have targeted the boss that made him bankrupt, or the staff of the bank that seized his house." Interesting, yeah. So all these things happened before, right? Just instigated. Yeah, I remember in donghua. It happened way before. Someone received is boring. I don't agree, Luke. What will the result of his revenge be? Without doubt, he already decided to end his life. He would have died no matter what the result of his revenge was. Klein gave an affirmative answer. Leonard nodded and revealed his signature flippant smile. "Then we can conclude that Mrs. Lowis and Salus are both people fated to die soon." Klein was a knowledgeable keyboard warrior. Upon hearing the question, he immediately had a guess. "You're saying that their deaths were moved forward by some supernatural factors, but why?" A more accurate description would be the life force had been shortened by some supernatural factor. It was stolen. A life force is the best material when it comes to summoning evil gods and devils or conducting terrifying curses. Leonard smiled as he worked at Klein's guess. Summoning evil gods and devils or conducting terrifying curses. Klein looked into Leonard's emerald eyes and said, half in doubt. You seem very sure of this, but for the time being, our investigation sample is only at 2. Leonard laughed cynically. Klein, there's no need for any pretense between us. I saw you break free from the control of sealed artifact U049, and I know that you are special, and you should be able to sense that I am a little different from the average beyonder. His smile disappeared as he looked into Klein's eyes. Jeez. I told you that there are many special people in this world that can always do things others can't, such as you and me. Leonard is glazing. I disagree, okay, yeah. Sure. This world has a long history. There are many magical items that people wish to obtain the control. They wish to become the stars of their own show. There aren't many people like that, but impossible that there are only 1 or 2 of them. I don't think that Beyonder with his or her secrets a bad person or an evil thug. I don't think that we even need to be clear on where the special abilities come from and what they represent. As long as your actions are not endangering me, the Nighthawks or Dingan City, then will still my partner. Similarly, I would hope that you look at me with some attitude. Of course, it's best not to speak of this to higher-ups. Those Vokies are old-fashioned and conservative, always thinking that the special people like us will definitely lose control, definitely feel the pull and temptation of the evil gods or devils. But I have more secrets than you can ever imagine, Klein thought. But I have more secrets than you can ever imagine, Klein thought to himself. He said frankly, I share the same sentiments as you. I only look at your actions and your motives and don't care about how special you are. I also try not to probe into your secrets. After saying this, he nodded into his heart. No, actually, I don't mind. I am very curious, but I'm putting up with it for now. Leon thinks that he's the star of a show. He thinks he's the main character. What kind of encounters did you have? And what kind of magical items does he possess? Howard unfastened the buttons of his shirt and nodded with a chuckle. Why would he unfasten the buttons? I'm glad we have this understanding. In action novels, it is called the meaning of two protagonists. The wheels of history are set in motion. How shameless, Klein gave a perfectionist smile. Pre-functionary smile. You know that the phrase wheels of history are set in motion came from Emperor Cell. Leonard paced around quickly, his green eyes brightened as he curled the corners of his mouth. Alright, I'll be honest. I'm quite confident that the victims of these deaths would have died within the next 3 months, but their deaths have been brought forward to the past 2 weeks by someone through some means. The other party motive should be to summon evil gods or devils or conducting a terrifying large-scale curse. It's easy for the culprit to hide their murders, given that the victims already showed the signs that they were going to die soon. This will not attract the attention of the police department or be distributed by the Nighthawk, Mandate Piratures, or Machinery High Mind. During the culprit's preparatory phase, Klein muttered to himself and analyzed the culprit thought process. Oh, that was Klein. I'm sorry. Zesty Klein. Leonard smiled and agreed. That's right. If 3 healthy normal people were to suddenly drop dead, it will definitely attract attention and bring about an investigation. Then how are we going to find the altar used for the ritual, regardless of whether the culprit wants to summon an evil god, devil, or conduct a terrible curse? He or she will be need a sacrificial altar. A ritual, the harvested life force would also have to be stored in a similar place. Klein chose to believe in Leonard, for he didn't have any other clues and was unable to make any other deductions. The place with a red chimney. Doesn't hurt to try. Leonard laughed and said, Klein, isn't that with your professional domain? I can't imagine what is happening around an altar like that. Without waiting for Klein to answer, Leonard described a thick aura of death with the altar at the center. There won't be any living things other than person conducting the ritual in a 10-meter radius. Surrounding temperature will be at least 5 degrees lower than the average temperature, with cold wind blowing past it continuously, and stolen life force of Mrs. Lawis and the rest will remain within the altar, sealed by the wall of spirituality. Having said that, he looked at Klein and teased. I think it will be able to divine through roughly with an altar with the following qualities would be. Klein frowned slightly and replied solemnly, as long as it's within Dingle City. Furthermore, I would need a quiet place where I would be disturbed. My house, for example. I would also need the personal belongings of Mrs. Lawis and the rest as well. Klein heart also skipped a bit. He felt that Leonard was a little too knowledgeable in dark arts. No problem. Leonard laughed. He suddenly stepped past Klein and walked toward the hall, not saying anything more. The man sure has a new style. Klein cursed in his heart and followed. When Leonard found Fry seriously taking notes, he put on a serious tone and said, I have an hypothesis, and was hoping that Klein would give it a try. What hypothesis? Fry asked, appearing cold. I'll tell you if there's a result. I don't want to be laughed at by Roseanne and the rest. Leonard gave a whimsical excuse and changed his subject. Fry didn't ask any further. He acted according to instructions and obtained Salos's and Mrs. Lowis's personal belongings from the nearby police station and then met his partners at Klein's house. Klein's house? Wait in the living room and don't let anybody disturb me. Klein took out his pocket watch and looked at the time. So it's about 6 now. Melissa might come back at any time. He's gonna meet Leonard. That's gonna be awkward. You can trust us. Leonard put his hands on the hips and paced around in the living room. Fry sat silently on the sofa. Does Leonard have ADHD? Klein bowed and went to his room on the 2nd floor. He locked the door and sealed his room with a fall of spirituality. After which he set up an altar and asked for the help of Goddess, eliminating any disturbances. Then Klein wrote down a divination statement on the piece of paper. The position of the altar. He gave a sweeping statement to prevent himself from missing out on any information. Grabbing the piece of paper and the belongings of the dead, Klein lay down on his bed. He first recalled the scene Leonard described and silently recited the statement 7 times. He didn't try using the world of fog, firstly because that weird and mysterious Leonard was downstairs. Weird and mysterious. Who knew if he would notice something weird about the ritual. Secondly, his potion was about to be completely digested. It was likely that the aid of the ritual was sufficient of the success of his divination. Okay. Klein would only consider finding an opportunity to enter the world of fog if he didn't get a result. After all, the summoning of an evil god or devil was something that could threaten Benson, Melissa, and himself. With the help of cogitation, he quickly entered the dream and saw a hazy, illusory, fragmented scene. Soon after, an image floated before his eyes. It was a 2-story grayish-blue house bathed in sunset glow. The windows of the 1st floor were shut tight and the dark curtains had no caps. However, they expanded and contracted from time to time. The soil of the house was dark brown and nothing was growing in it. The garden around the house seemed to be covered in shadows, dilapidated and dark. There was a river flowing silently near the house. Sometime later, Klein exited the dream, having not seen anything else. The hypothesis was correct. Where could that building be? Is that building where Trissy is in? So it's not the Red Chimney? Only too many rivers in Dingan City, such as the Westboro, Southwestboro, and the Harbor area, the University area. He opened his eyes and dropped his temples as he thought his expression serious. That's it? What the fuck? Oh wow, okay. Yeah, target building. Wow. Leonard is inside Klein's house. I repeat, Leonard the weirdo is inside Klein's house. Anyway, so we're gonna go there in the next chapter, I guess. Maybe we're gonna see Trissy now. That still hasn't happened in the novel. I think it was Fry, but it was also Don Smith as well, right? Target building, 122. 2nd Daffodil Street, inside the living room that was painted with the luster of dusk. Klein stood up in front of the oriel window and as he told Fry and Leonard, I'm gonna blow my nose. There we go. My divination revealed something. I saw a grayish blue story building in my dream. The windows of the 1st floor were all shut tight and the curtains were drawn, surrounded by a few meters of brown soil without any greenery or flowers. Also a terribly gloomy garden, just like the kind you find in horror story. The only characteristic that can be used to identify it is a nearby river, a slightly broad river. It might be the Dosok River or a Koi River. We could only find out through a process of elimination. Hopefully we can still make it in time. Dusok River was the biggest river in the Long Kingdom, coming from the northwest where the Mirminsk mountain was. It flowed towards the southeast, passing by the Metershire, Awa County, and passing through the capital Backland and into the Sea of Bridge Harbor. Okay. Locations where it converged in Dingan City included the southwest corner of the Westboro and the harbor in Southboro. There's also the Koi River came from the northern York Mountain as it passed through the Universities District in the Eastboro and locally merged with the Tusok River. Those were the two main rivers around Dingan. The rest could only be considered streams, and none of them had expensive water surface. Upon hearing Klein's description, the pale and cold Fry nodded lightly in agreement. Since there were no other clues, process of elimination was the only efficient method. Just then Leonard smiled and said, Perhaps we can narrow down the possible locations of the target. How do we narrow down the possibilities? Klein rolled and asked in reply as he looked at the silver fine and leaf pocket watch. Leonard chuckled. A criminal with a plan and a goal will select target somewhere far away from the location of his altar. This is a result of the natural instinct to be safe. Only when there aren't many soon-to-be dead people left in areas far from his altar, will he consider the nearest target. So, we should read through his information again, exclude the areas where the number of death incidents rose rapidly above average standards. My eyes lit up when he heard that. Brilliant conjecture! Damn, Leonard cooked actually. At the same time, he sighed inwardly. I really don't want the talent. I don't have the talent to be a detective. Ryan nodded and picked up the documents on the coffee table and started reading it again. After he managed to deepen his hoarse voice, said, "We really are such a region, and there is only one possibility." "Which area?" Klein asked. Probably best a thick stack of information to Leonard, who was next to him. He pursed his thin lips and said, "Westboro." "It's the Westboro." Klein clenched his fist and immediately suggested. "Then let's search the southwestern area of Westboro. The area isn't huge." "I agree," Leonard echoed as he waved the papers in his hands in agreement, as though he wasn't the one who suggested narrowing down the scope of the church. The two-wheeled carriage slowly drove along the muddy road. Beside them, the red and orange glow on sunset reflected off the broad river that was colored with the twilight radiance of the sunset. Ryan and Fry looked out the window from both sides of the carriage, inspecting one house after another. They were searching for a grayish blue house with a dilapidated garden. If possible, they could take note if the curtains on the first floor was drawn. Leonard leisurely sat in his original spot, leaning against the wall of the carriage as he hummed a popular local tune. Dim scenery flew past, and Klein caught sight of the grayish-blue two-story building on the corner of his eye. "No Dan Smith, okay." In front of the building was a gloomy garden that appeared in ruins. "Found it," Klein said while suppressing his voice. Before he finished his sentence, Fry and Leonard squeezed over to look out the window. There was almost no space between them. As the carriage drew closer to the building, the dark curtains that were drawn on the first floor appeared before the three Nighthawks' eyes. Klein didn't even need to divine whether they had the right building. He completely certain that it was the building that he saw in his dream. That was where the evil altar was set up. None of them stopped the carriage, but instead allowed the carriage driver to continue driving forward. They passed the target and continued away from it, as though they were just passing by. When they could no longer see the building when they turned around, Leonard told the driver to stop the carriage. "Okay." Klein returned to Sutherland Street in his carriage and told the captain to come here for assistance. Okay, so Captain is gonna come here. Leonard snapped his fingers and smirked at his teammate. Is he thinking of me as a rookie? And I shouldn't be involved in such a dangerous mission? This fellow is still quite a nice guy. Klein was stunned as he realized what Leonard meant. Klein nodded in agreement. "You just started combat training and your job is a support role." "I know, and the person who could kill so many in order to hold a ritual won't be an easy opponent. Only the captain could make decisions less terrifying." Klein took a breath and agreed rationally. He looked at Leonard when they fried before forcing a smile and said, "Be careful. Don't worry, I'll cherish my life a lot when the captain arrives. Only keep watch and we won't get close." Leonard smiled. Klein didn't see anything, but only picked up his suitcase. Klein was quiet for a while. He then took out his copper penny and said, "Let me divine once for you." He chanted, "What will happen here will lead to good outcome." He flipped the coin. At the same time, his eyes turned dark. Dang! The coin flipped onto the air, then landed firmly in Klein's palm. I looked at it, saw the king's head, immediately let out a breath of relief. Okay, so it is a good thing actually. Only a blurry symbol, so there are other interpretations. The most important thing is to be careful and prudent at all times, explained to Fry and Leonard like a cereal too. Leonard had already turned around. He waved and jumped on the carriage. "As naggy as my 80-year-old grandma." Fry nodded seriously and got off with his suitcase. Watching both of his teammates head towards target building, Klein touched the revolver in his underarm holster and said to driver, "Sutherland Street." Driver, who had been hired by the hour, didn't object but allowed the horses to continue the journey. 36 Sutherland Street. When Klein entered the Blackthorn Security Company, Roseanne, Miss Oriana, and the others have already gotten off work. It was unusually quiet and dim. Dan was sitting in the sofa in the guest area. The gas lamp was unlit and he seemed to blend into the darkness in his black trench coat. "Found any clues?" Klein, who was searching for the captain, was given a shock by Dan's deep voice. Klein quickly turned around and looked into Dan's grey eyes and said, "Yes, we." He really told him about Leonard and both theses. his confirmation of a divination and the subsequent discovery of the house, as for Leonard's confidence and the uniqueness that Leonard had discussed, they were unimportant and obviously not worth mentioning. Dunn got cut in for time to time. When the briefing ended, he abruptly stood up and walked towards the door. When he was almost down the stairs, he turned around and said, "I almost forgot. You stay here just in case there are any emergencies." "All right," Klein nodded solemnly. At that very moment, Odin and Kelly, who was on duty guard Chinese Gate, the other Nighthawk, were busy in the field. Don Smith ran down a few steps and suddenly stopped. As he put on his hat, he saw the Klein through the door. "Lock the door and follow me." We don't need you to join the battle. First, you can get a sense of the atmosphere, and second, we might require the assistance of ritualistic magic during the final surge of inspection. Remember, until everything is over, you have to be at least 50 meters away. You cannot get close to the building. Okay, so Klein is gonna go. I was like, how is this gonna work? Klein was done and nodded firmly. Alright. The sun sank beneath the horizon and the surging Tossok River turned eerie and dark. Flying clouds obscured the crimson moon, making the grayish-blue story building look a little monster. Building looked like a monster hidden in the shadows. The garden before the building was extremely quiet. It was though it didn't have any insect or any other forms of life. Klein looked at the scene from distance, his palms sweating and his body shivering. He felt that there were countless terrifying things hidden, waiting and hungry for a bloody feast. He watched Don, Leon and Fry move carefully toward the target building, blending in the darkness. The second floor of the grayish-blue building, the bedroom, without any lights. A gentle, a sweet young maiden, the round face by the way, was seated before her dressing table, looking carefully at her face after the complicated skincare routine she had just completed. There was a silver mirror next to her right hand, its surface coarsely crowned, almost unable to reflect her figure. Suddenly a stream of blood seeped out from the mirror. The expression of gentle and sweet-looking Trissy suddenly grew grave. She stood up and walked to the window and looked out in silence. "Trissy! Let's freaking go, man. Holy shit, we have fighting going on." 123, let's see. 123, right now. 1, 2, 3, guys. This is the Trissy fight. Right? Ooh, that chapter went on quick, man. Beyond their battle, winds grew all over the dilapidated garden outside the glass windows. The river flowed softly, reflecting the stars in the sky, and warm clouds suffused out of the nearby buildings. Everything was silent, as if waiting the arrival of night. Trissy, who had ordinary features, which combined them to make her look surprisingly beautiful, attracted her gaze and walked quickly toward the clothes rack to retrieve a long black robe littered with a hood. She quickly put the robe on, fastened the buttons and belt before pulling the hood over her head, transforming herself into an assassin. Trissy raised her right hand and swiped her face, immediately turning her appearance under the hood blurry. Right on the heels of that, she grabbed a handful of shimmering powder from the hidden bulge near her waist and scattered it over herself while reciting an incantation. Trissy's figure started to disappear bit by bit, her outline vanishing like how pencil marks are being erased by an eraser. She became invisible. She silently left the bedroom. After completing her concealment spell, she moved to the opposite room and then opened a non-grilled window. With a light leap, Trissy stood on the windowsill and looked over the grassy plains to the back of the building. She looked down at the steel fence that seemingly fused with the night. There she saw corpse collector Fry was silently making his way over the fence. She took in a deep breath and fluttered down like a feather, stepping onto the grassy field without a sound. Fry, who was wearing a black trenchcoat, cautiously surveyed the surroundings with his custom revolver in his hand, seeking out vengeful spirits or evil spirits that might appear. He could see such entities directly. Trissy approached Fry silently and made her way behind him. It was unknown when a dagger smeared with black paint appeared in her hand. Poof! She struck quickly, plunging the dagger into Fry's lower back. But at this moment, the scene in front of her shattered as if everything was an illusion. Already in a nightmare! Trissy realized that she was still standing in the windowsill, still looking over the grassy field and the steel fence. Except this time around, it wasn't only corpse collector Fry who was standing outside the fence, also Leonard, who was aiming straight at the window. as well as Don Smith, the captain of Nighthawks, was hunched over as he pressed down on his lapella, his eyes closed as formless ripples spread outward from him. Trissy's pupils constricted. She understood that everything that had happened was just a dream. She had fallen asleep unknowingly. Bang, bang, bang! And Fry fired 3 shots. Moth! Everything that happened was just a dream. She had fallen asleep unknowingly. Bam, bang, bang, bang! Lieutenant Fry fired 3 shots, accurately hitting the invisible target who was still waking up from the reverie. Crack! Trissy's figure started to appear, first cracking, then completely shattering into fragments of a rough silver mirror. Inside the building, Trissy, who had used substitution spell, turned around to escape. She followed the corridor in steps, sprinting all the way to the first floor. Whoosh! A cold and sinister wind blew across the first floor, one that could freeze a person. Formless, transparent figures were numbly pacing around every corner of the building in daze. Oh, Jesus Christ. Trissy, who had lost her concealment, felt her temperature drop every time she passed through the spirits. She could no longer control her shivers, and she finally reached the sacrificial altar. The altar was round table, with a figurine of a deity carved out of the bone placed in the center. So this is the demoness, the primordial demoness. This figurine was about the size of a grown man's head, with only a mere indication of her height, but the figure was that of a beautiful woman. Her hair extended from her head to her heels, each strand clear and thick, as if they were poisonous snakes or tentacles. There was only one eye situated at the tip of every strand of hair, some closed, others open. Oh God. There were many puppets strewn around the figurine. The craftsmanship of the puppets were crude. Names and relevant information were written on the puppets. For example, Choice Mayor. Ooh, the person in the Alavalfa tragedy that survived. There were 3 names in the candles, flickering with yellowish green flame despite the cold, sinister winds. Trissy bowed on deity's figure and quickly recited her incantations. She then pushed away the puppets and extinguished the flames of the candles before picking the figurine up. Whoosh! The winds howled fiercely as they shook the closed windows violently. Clank, creak! Shards of glass flew around in all directions. Rai, who had just made his way to the other side of the building, didn't tear the parts into the sacrificial altar recklessly. He shivered, feeling his blood turn cold and frosty. It was making his actions visibly slower. Suddenly, he felt tightness around his heels, as though he had been grabbed by something invisible. An accentuated sense of coldness spread upwards from the point of the contact. A sequence time beyond her would have turned completely numb by now, but as corpse collector, Fry was no stranger to such situation. Tank, by the way. He turned his revolver into the side of his heels and pulled the trigger. It was as if he could see who the enemy was, and exactly where it was. Bang! A silver demon hunting bullet pierced the air, causing a shrill howl in response. The formless figure dissipated. Fry regained his ability to move. Elsewhere, Don Smith, who wanted to reach the 2nd floor by avoiding the frontal assault on the altar, was similarly affected by the cold winds. His body froze as he stopped right outside the shuttered window. Whoosh! The curtains behind the window lifted suddenly, and then coughed down as if a monster had just opened its mouth to devour its prey. Jesus! The curtain wrapped around Don's head, seemingly to have been imbued with life. Don's facial features began to press through the constricting cloth. Don, who was about to be suffocated, stumped down with both feet. He straightened his knees and twisted his waist, loosening the curtain's grip with raw strength alone. He grabbed a corner of the curtain around his head with his left hand and yanked it away before tossing it toward the ground. Bang! He failed to show the other half of the curtain behind the window, stopping it from attempting another assault on him. The curtain stopped immediately as a dark red liquid oozed out from it. Whoosh! On the field, another Mitchell was reciting his poems, also hit by the cold, sinister winds, infused with the intense sensation of death. His teeth shattered, making it hard for him to enunciate his poems. The messy weeds in the garden suddenly extended, wrapping themselves around his heels. A black shadow hurled itself at him, along with the violent winds. Leonard, whose body had become rigid, failed to fire in time. He could only pull back his shoulder and raise his arm. Thud! The black shadow smashed into his forearm. Why am I making fun of my voice acting? into his forearm, the thorns of his body piercing his skin. It was a pretty bright red flower. Its origins. God damn it, man, what's happening? The origins unknown. In pain, Leonard tossed aside the flower, dyed with his blood. Poisoned, by the way. Bang! He fired a shot at the spreading vines, causing dark red liquid to ooze out. Tap, tap, tap. Leonard quickened his pace and charged towards the shattered window on the first floor, where the altar was situated behind. The vines retracted abruptly from where he had previously stood, as if hiding from something invisible. Trissy took advantage of the chaos created by destroying the altar and the suspension-style ritual to conceal herself once again. She managed to fool the spirit visions of the Nighthawks and escaped the pincer attack before making her way to the spot behind the Nighthawks. Jeez, okay. She extended her right hand, immediately causing a cold wind to blow. It carried the flower dyed with Leonard blood right into her palm. Trissy did not stop. With the flower in hand, she nimbly made her way over the steel fence and escaped in the direction of the Dussac River. Leonard, who had just entered the first level, turned his head abruptly, as though he was listening to something. He was listening to the shadow! His expression changed. He frantically pulled up his sleeve and looked at the wound caused by the flower. With his constitution, the wound had already stopped bleeding. There was only some red swelling that remained. What's up, Wutro? Let's wait for XS fan. Psych! We're gonna keep reading. Leonard's expression became grim. He pinched his left index finger and pulled his fingernail straight out. You! Ow! 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 His face contorted in pain, but he did not pause. As he recited something silently, he sliced open the coagulated wound with the fingernail. When the fingernail was dyed with this dark red blood, he pulled out a few strands of hair from his scalp and wrapped the fingernail with his hair. Beside the Dussac River, Trissy slowed down. She sought her gaze towards the flower in her hand. She was chanting something. A spall of black, illusory fire suddenly appeared in her palm. The flames enveloped the flower, burning it to ashes. If Laura didn't do that, Laura would have died. I'm just saying. After completing this, he did that in anime too, yeah, but in donghua it was more like, it was less detailed. At the same time, Leonard tossed the blood-stained fingernail wrapped in his hair to the corner, but he saw it burn and release a foul stench. Wow, smart. The fingernail and hair disappeared quickly, leaving only some dust behind. Sheesh. Leonard heaved a sigh of relief. He entered the first level through the window and said to Don and Fry, who were... We clearly saw him pull a nail, yeah, but it wasn't as detailed. Right? I entered the first level through the window and said to Don and Fry, who were destroying the altar, the target has escaped, but at first, alright. Our primary objective was to stop the ritual. Don sighed and looked at the puppets on the table. She was very cautious and powerful. She sensed us approaching her ahead of time, otherwise she should be, at the very least, a sequence 7 beyond her. Give Klein us the signal, ask him to come over. Through the brief interaction in the dream, he had determined that the enemy was female. Okay. He flicked it. Oh god. And then pulling the hair from his head. Oh. Wrapping up work. So in the donghua, I think Klein was more involved, right? And the fight with Trissy, but in the novel he wasn't. One second, guys. Yeah, that fight was really cool. I remember in the donghua, it was at that point of the donghua, it was one of my favorite fights with episode 3, but they only had like 3 or 4 fights at that point, right? But it was really cool. The novel, it also was really fucking cool, especially the beginning part of the dream and the part with, Fry and Leonard there as well. Trissy got away. Wrapping up work, Klein was sitting in the shadows of a bus building dozens of meters away from the target building. He heard the faint sound of gunshots and the howling of violent winds. The enemy runs towards me. Should I throw my gun or should I pretend that I didn't see him? He thought as he shivered in cold sweat. Beyond that could, through various means, cut short the lives of others if it wasn't a sequence 9 or sequence 8 beyond her. There certainly won't be someone that a seer like him could fight against face to face. Even if he sacrificed himself, he might not be able to slow the target down enough for Dan and Leonard to catch up with him. It was fortunate that ever Nakada's Empress of Misfortune seemed to hear her loyal guard's prayers. No one ran toward the location where Klein was hiding. After a few minutes, he heard a melodious song coming from the building. Cocking his ears to the side so he could hear better, Klein confirmed that it was the popular local tune Leonard Mitchell always hummed. It was filled with bass words. He let out a breath of relief. He held his gun in one hand and his skin in the other. He then walked out the shadows towards the target building. The popular local tune was the meeting signal that he had agreed upon with Don and the rest. That's good. Klein took 2 steps and suddenly paused. He leaned his skin against the metal fencing and switched the revolver to the other hand. Then he took out the silver chain inside his sleeve and let the Dopa's pendant hang down naturally. Klein waited till Dopa stabilized and immediately closed his eyes and entered a cogitation state. He recited a divination statement. The singing earlier was an illusion. Smart, by the way. After repeating it 7 times, he opened up his eyes and saw the pendant spinning counterclockwise. Smart. It's not an illusion. Klein put his pendulum, grabbed his cane, and quickly got close to the arc-shaped metal gate leading to the target building. He then passed the black cane to his right hand and held it with the revolver. He extended his hands to touch the fence, intending to push it open. But he suddenly felt a piercing chill. It was as though someone had poured a bucket of ice down his neck without warning. Jeez, that's scary. Klein hissed and jerked his hand back, his teeth clenched. Just like winter here, under the dim starlight and distant street lamp, he looked through the garden behind the metal fencing. He saw the withered branches, fallen flowers, and leaves covered with white frost on the brown soil. Wow. Amazing, Klein marveled in his head. He bent his fingers and tapped his lapella to activate spirit vision. He returned the silver inlaid cane to his left hand and pushed it against the fence to open the closed gate. The gate squeaked and they passed through it sideways. He stepped onto the stone path that led directly to the grayish-blue building. On both sides of the path were twisted plants that seemed to resemble ghouls in the dark. Ooh. The scene reminded Klein of various horror stories and paranormal films. He subsequently slowed down his breathing and walked faster. However, after just a few steps, someone suddenly patted his left shoulder. Ugh, scary. Ba-dum, ba-dum. Klein's heart skipped, then started thumping rapidly. He raised his right hand, aimed his revolver, and slowly turned around to look. In the dim light, he saw a flimsy branch that had already fallen off. This is what we call scaring ourselves. Klein twitched the corner of his lips, waved again, and knocked the branch off. He continued moving forward as faint sobs sounded in his ears. Blurry, translucent shadows appeared before his eyes. These shadows had swarmed over, feeling the breath of a living person and the warmth of flesh and blood. Jeez. Klein jumped in fright and immediately ran to the door of the grayish-blue building. That's what the captain meant by getting a sense of atmosphere. It's much scarier than the last time I helped Sir Dewey well. The resentment of that aggravated spirit is more rigid than the shadows. She hadn't taken the initiative to attack back then. He thought as he walked toward the altar in the middle of the living room. It was a round table full of crudely made puppets. She even lit candles stood amidst the puppets. Interesting. Lon Smith stood right before the altar with his back to Klein. He took one puppet after another and looked at them. Corpse Collector Fry took a look at the floating shadows and extended his hand in an attempt to comfort them. Oh god, but all he did was pass through them helplessly. The shadows didn't attack him, seemingly recognizing him as one of their own. So the shadows are probably the souls that prematurely died, like Salus and Mrs. Lewis. Leonard Mitchell noticed Klein's arrival. He changed his tone, turning his voice softer but charming. Calm is the morn without a sound. Calm is the suit to calmer grief. And only through the faded leaf, the chestnut pattering to the ground. What is Plot saying? A poem? Adapted from Alfred Tennyson's In Memorial, HHI Offbeat MTCCC XXXX YYYY11. Okay, thank you. A reference. Those were Roman numbers, by the way. In the soothing recitation of the poem, Klein seemed to see a clear lake reflecting in the moonlight and the crimson moon hanging quietly high in the sky. Restless shadows calmed down and stopped chasing after the warm breath of the living nighthawks among them. Don put down the puppet in his hand, turned around and said to Klein, "This is a ceremony for a terrifying curse. It's fortunate that we already destroyed it. First prepare..." Why do you read it like that? I can't read Roman numbers. That's why. First prepare a ritual to comfort the remaining spirits, because it has been like 15 years since I studied it in school. First prepare the ritual to confirm the remaining spirits, then try to communicate with the spirits of the dead and see if you can get any clues from them. Klein, who realized that he was no longer a burden, immediately held his chest out and said, "Yes, Captain." He reached the altar in a few steps and extended his hands to sweep the puppets off of the round table. At that moment he noticed from the corner of his eyes that every puppet had a name and a corresponding message. "Captain, you discover anyone you know?" Klein asked in passing. Then he glanced at Don and Don looked at him. Both of them fell silent. So silly. Why would they ask questions that test the captain's memory? Klein nearly covered his hands and sighed. Covered his face and sighed. If there were any other boss, they would definitely find any opportunity to make my life difficult because of this. Luckily, the captain will forget about this. Oh, I wonder if that's an advantage or a disadvantage. He thought, half glad, half joking. After a short silence, Don seemed to finally be capable of differentiating reality from team world. He replied, "There's someone you know." "Who?" Klein stopped his hand, still extended to put the candle back to where it was supposed to be. "Joyce Mayer, survivor of the Alfalfa tragedy," Don replied simply. "Joyce Mayer? Anna's fiancée?" Klein suddenly thought of Salos in the workhouse. He seemed to have been instigated and misled by someone, causing him to bring forward his rage and committing a arson. "Welcome back, Masters. At the end of Trissy fight, yeah." Klein retracted his right hand and said in a deep voice, "Instigator Triss. He used the lives that were cut short as sacrifice ending to curse all survivors of the Alfalfa tragedy, because he didn't know who uncovered his involvement and lodged a police report. If Triss took revenge directly, it would have been impossible to wipe out all the targets gathered throughout Tingen. After 2 or 3 murders, he would have been noticed by the Nighthawks, Malay Punishers, and the Machinery High Mind. Then he would have lost his chance to continue his murdering spree." Klein filled the blanks of why Triss had started all this. Dan nodded first, then he shook his head. "Not all survivors, but only survivors in Tingen. His curse ritual can only affect the people within this range. Besides, the most of the ritual is a female, not Triss." "Well, I have news for you, Don." Klein creased his eyebrows and asked, "Perhaps an expert at the Theosophy Order sent to help Chris?" "Yes, the origins of Theosophy Order might involve the demoness sect. It's very normal for their experts to be female." Don smiled and said in a deep voice, "I agree with your judgment, although we only encountered a woman and not Triss. There are guesses that we can make, such as the woman and Triss don't stay together, or that Triss was out looking for people who are dying soon." And didn't say anything further. He set the 3 candles in place, took out the full moon essence oil, crimson sandalwood, and other ingredients, and set up an altar quickly. And he used a silver dagger to make sealed wall. He started praying to Evernight Goddess, the mistress of repose, of silence. He prayed that the shadows inside him and outside the house would comforted completely. Unfortunately, in the subsequent attempt to communicate with the spirits of the dead, Klein could only see a little of what the spirits had seen before their deaths. There weren't any useful clues. After settling the shadows into peaceful sleep in the dark night, he ended the ceremony and removed the spirituality wall. He then shook his head and told the others. The backlash from disturbed ritual caused severe damage, and the remnant images of the host were lost. Dan wasn't surprised. He pointed out the stars and said, "Let's look at the 2nd floor and give it another try." "Okay," Klein, Leonard, and Fry nodded in agreement. The 3 Nighthawks went up the stairs to the 2nd floor and parted ways to search through each room. In the end, they met in a bedroom that was filled with faint aroma. They saw messy dresses lying around and open boxes. Dan took up a box from the dressing table and smelled it before asking, "Are these cosmetics?" "To be exact, they are skincare products. Ever since Emperor Cell, they were not lumped together with broad term." Leonard explained with a smile. How did Leonard know that? Of course, Leonard, man. I use skincare though. Guys, drop your skincare routine. They're exactly skincare products. They were ever simple Emperor Cell, they were not lumped together with broad term. Leonard explained with a smile. "Captain, as a gentleman, there are certain things you have to know." Leonard didn't join the discussion, but cast his gaze towards the mirror on the dressing table. There was an obvious crack on the mirror, and there was shattered pieces of the rock beneath. The Beyonder left in rush didn't destroy it entirely. Suddenly said in deep voice, "Maybe I could give this a try." "I leave it to you," Don replied in confidence. Klein quickly brought the candles up from the first floor and lit them in front of the shattered mirror. Under a dim, flickering candlelight, he took out the items like full moon essence to create a spirituality wall. After Klein prepared everything, he stood before the mirror that reflected the lights of all 3 candles and chanted in Hermes. "I pray for the power of dark night. I pray for the power of mystery. I pray for the goddess loving grace." Power of mystery, by the way. Skin routine? Yeah, what's your guys' skin routine? Keratin? What the fuck is a keratin? Skin routine. I pray for the mirror to receive a brief restoration. I pray for it to show every person that it affected in the past month. As the incantation was being recited, a strong wind suddenly howled within the spirituality wall. The shattered pieces of the mirror swirled off the ground and returned to their original locations. The mirror was covered in cracks, suddenly ripped from gloomy brilliance. Klein wiped his hand over and over it, and the human figure suddenly appeared in the frame. But that figure wasn't Klein. It was a gentle and sweet-looking woman with a round face. Perhaps it was because the mirror was broken, or perhaps it was because the backlash of the interrupted ritual that affected the second floor as well. Her facial features were blurry, and her actual appearance wasn't exactly clear. But even so, Klein found the person unusually familiar. Ooh, I wonder what even is considered a minor. Gosh, stop, guys. Wow, okay, so bold idea. I'm guessing this is the idea that Trissy is Trissy, right? Let's go, let's read. I have an excess fan, by the way. When faced with a strange sense of familiarity, other sequence 9 Beyonders might try their best to recall or even disregard and forget about it. This year was different. Klein immediately ended with a ritual and dispelled the wall of spirituality. He took out a piece of paper and wrote it on a statement, the source of the sense of familiarity. After which he sat on the edge of the bed in the room. He silently recited it with a piece of in hand. 7 times later, his pupils became darker. He fell asleep with the help of a cogitation and started to conversing with his own spirituality. In the hazy, contorted world, Klein saw a carriage. He saw a young lady wearing a long grey dress. This lady had smooth black hair. Her waist was a little round. She had a gentle and pleasant demeanor, but her body was shivering unnaturally. Damn. What's up, username? The image flickered, and once again Klein saw this young lady at the underground market. She was squatting and conversing with someone. The dream receded quickly, and Klein woke up, understanding why the image he saw in the mirror was so familiar. He had met this person before. When people say WB, I think of Whitebeard, by the way. The first time at Daffodil Street in the district near Iron Cross Street, the captain and the rest were chasing down instigator Triss. That night, there must be a connection. Klein thought for a few seconds, then set up the ritual once again. He asked for the help of Goddess to sketch a portrait of the enemy in his memory. Don and the rest had been waiting silently, without interrupting Klein unnecessarily. Only when he was done sketching did they crowd over and inspect the portrait. "You met her before?" Don asked. Klein nodded slightly and answered simply, "Yes, I saw her at the public carriage stop on Daffodil Street, the night when you were going after the instigator. I was in the district near Klein and Cross Street." "Then there's a good chance that she was the enemy just now, the partner of instigator," Don nodded in thought. Leonard suddenly chimed in. "Don't any of you feel the way that this portrait is very familiar? She looked at a lot like instigator Triss." Klein froze immediately, casting his gaze to the portrait again and studying it carefully. "Yeah, they look very familiar indeed. Round face, arrow eyes, gentle demeanor." The more he looked at the portrait, the more he felt that Leonard said made sense. The biggest difference was that instigator Triss had ordinary features, where the young lady could be considered pretty. Really considered? Klein raised his head and looked at Leonard, noticing that he was signaling something to him by raising his brows. What does he mean? Klein was confused. Don Smith guessed she could be the instigator. Maybe maybe like a brother. She joined the Theosophy Order or the demoness sect. Leonard sighed after he realized how bad Klein was at reading his mind. He said in a serious tone, I have a bold idea. What idea? Don asked. Leonard described succinctly. I think that this person is Integral Triss. What? Fry exclaimed in shock. Don creased his brows and said, what do you mean that this is this Instigator Triss? Is this actually female or male who's pretending to be a female? No, from the dream I can confirm that... How can you confirm that she's a female? What if Triss was cross-dressing? No, from the dream I can confirm that she's a female. Did you have a beak, Don Smith? Did you have a beak? Klein had been exposed to many creative and ridiculous plots after all. He took another look at the portrait and immediately had another guess. Could it be that Insecure Triss became a female? They could explain many things. For example, why would the trail leading to Triss suddenly sever? Why couldn't they find any traces, even with divination? Perhaps... because there was... Perhaps because there was a fundamental change to the target. The only question was how he could change into a woman in such a short span of time. It appeared to be rather simple. He had pretty decent looks after his transformation even. I mean, to be honest, he's pretty attractive. Klein thought, distracted. I wish I was him. Oh my god. Yeah, Don Smith checked in the dream. Damn. Does he have suits here as sequence 9? In few chapters ago it said something and something are sequence 9, I'm pretty sure. Right? Anyone was in the previous stream? Masters, maybe? Leonard nodded in relief. Yes, that's my theory. This can perfectly explain why Insecure Triss had seemed to vanish. Also fits with the strange fact that the upper Ichalons of the demoness sect are all female. And and Fry were momentarily at loss of words, even though they had seen many monsters. Fuck off. And wonderful things. And wondrous things. It was their first time dealing with a transformation like this. What do you mean is that there are considerable number of women in upper echelons of demon sect that used to be men? Don asked. He didn't wait for an answer before saying, that could be possible. Perhaps it's the unique characteristics of their potion. Klein shivered a little as he listened. He felt that the potion of demon sect was a trap. Let's hope the similar potion doesn't exist in the pathway of the seer. No, definitely not. That is the pathway of the demoness. Even the name of the potion sounds wrong. But I still don't know what the corresponding sequence 1 to seer is. Klein subsequently started praying to the goddess. One of my theories that sequence 1 of seer is actually full. That's one of my theories. Can potions accomplish such a thing? Fry asked with a little disbelief. Leonard laughed and threw up his hands. Leonard is like caught. Even mid to low sequence potion can cause unimaginable changes. After all, the ocean from the crater turned to look at Klein. Try to divine where the target will appear next. Alright, Klein went over the pile of dresses and picked out one of the mixed emotions. He sprayed it over the carpet. He held his cane over the dress and recalled the target's features and relevant information. He then began to recite in his heart. Triss's whereabouts. 7 times Klein's pupils turned from brown to black. Wind started to blow around him. He left his left hand released his cane, allowing the black cane to wobble. Despite the shaking, and the cane failed to fall. It stood up tall in its original position. There's an interference, Klein said with a deep tone. Interference implies that our assumptions are correct. That lady just now was most probably Instigator Triss. No, Trissy. Upon seeing it, his son nodded indescribably. To live up to the reputation of Demoness Sect, which had been active since the last epoch, since Triss had transformed in Trissy, then deduced that he wasn't part of the Theosophy Order but the Demoness Sect. Surveying the surroundings, Dunn sighed and said, we can search for her through different means, such as where the clothes came from or the owner of his house. We can also get the police department to patrol the train stations and piers. We might be able to get some clues like that, but Trissy will definitely have had enough time to leave Dingen. Yes, I'll try again about the Grey Fog when I'm back at home. Klein was cautious of people like Trissy, who wanted to unleash the massacre on a whim. He wanted to desperately find her and execute her on the spot. Jeez. Leonard headed to the police department and gathered a group to wrap up things here. I mean, fair enough. Klein, you can go back to rest now. Don rubbed his temples and paused for a moment. For a few seconds, he said to Klein. Additionally, to test him, but also to teach him. Now, would you have handled this evening mission? Assume that me, Leonard and Fry are the only members on your team. Klein creased his brows and thought more than 10 seconds. I'd first use divination to ascertain the ritual would take effect soon. If the answer was negative, then I'd stick to observing and approaching. Then I'd notify the police department to deploy personnel around the area, as well as gather at least 5 cannons. Oh my god, at least 5 cannons to bombard the entire building. Whatever Trissy was hiding was leveled. She could either blast it to death in the building or attempt to flee amidst the cannon fire. This would easily expose her. Until then, I will station you and the rest of the different stops. He got more and more excited as he continued. Oh my god, Klein making his plan. As he continued, he felt that his idea was simple and effective, barbaric and decisive. It's very safe and very appropriate. Don, Leonard and Fry were dumbfounded. They didn't say anything for a long time. Capturing is it a good idea? The excited Klein heart thumped rapidly when he saw that they had no reaction. Oh my god. Don was silent for a few seconds before he said, no, it is a good idea, but the premise is that we have to confirm that forceful destruction of the altar will create more disastrous outcome. A long time Nighthawks were accustomed to relying on ourselves, our power as beyonders, and cons in all circumstances were not used to allowing normal people to come into contact with supernatural incidents. Alright, I was always an ardent fan of firepower, bombardment, Klein added in his heart. Klein and Leonard walked to the carriage station about 500 meters away before they saw it. After waiting for a while, they returned to Iron Cross Street. One went to the nearby police station while the other returned to Daffodil Street. When Klein arrived, his front door, he adjusted his clothes and made sure that everything was alright before fishing out his keys and opening the door. Melissa and Benson were in the living room, quietly doing assignments and reading books respectfully until the gas lamp. Benson must be tired after toiling at work the entire day, yet he perseveres in his studies. After he comes home, why did you do that, XS fan? After he comes home, what a determined man. I can't do that. All I can think about is I was lying down. Yeah, Benson is the goat for real. Klein glanced at his brother and smiled, giving a silent greeting by raising his hand. Benson smiled and said, I don't understand the price behind a handsome salary. University. There's a price for everything in this world. There's something we must give before we can gain anything in return, Klein said, leaving his cane on the rack next to the door. That's so true, by the way, what Klein said. Wiki jump scare? Ah, I see. I'm sorry, man. You can always ask in Discord, in the spoiler chat, and people are gonna answer you, right? That's apparently something Emperor Cell said, right? Melissa stopped writing and looked up. Really? Oh my god, fucking Roselle saying everything. The thing in Cynical School was different from university and public schools. There was only 2 weeks for summer break, from late July to early August. The lessons resumed the moment the hottest days were over. Ah, I see. What's up, who? Who, 1, 2, 3? Is that so? I don't remember, Klein replied, his expression a little rigid. He took off his hat and headed upstairs. He didn't to find Trissy's whereabouts as soon as possible. Suddenly he heard his stomach rumble. He felt intense hunger. Alright, I haven't had dinner, but the note I left said that the security company would provide food and asked them not to leave any for me. Aw. Seriously, Captain, you actually forget about it. Aw. Klein's expression changed several times. He intended to pretend that he was full. Aw. At that moment, Melissa turned and looked at him. She pointed to the kitchen and said, we left a small piece of lamb chop and a bowl of thick vegetable soup for you. There are a few sticks of bread left to you. Aww, let's go, Melissa! After saying this, she buried her head into her work and muttered to herself, I felt that meal spoiled by work wouldn't be too good, probably making people lose their appetite. Wow! Okay, the fight is over with Triss and Trissy, and I think the Trissy reveal in the novel was less obvious than the donghua, obviously. So I'm excited for volume 2, where we can actually start guessing and probably being wrong 98% of the time. Also, we have the plot going on with 4 soon happening. So I have a headache right now. I'll be back on in a few days. I'll announce it on Discord the day before next time. I wanna do like 40 chapters next week because this week I had a lot of family problems. I'm struggling a little bit with something in my life right now, so that's why there wasn't like a lot of recordings and stuff like that. But I hopefully it's fixed now. I'm actually also going to psychiatrist tomorrow as well, so I'm trying to figure things out, and hopefully we can do 40 next week, and then we can go back to doing 15 and 30 every week, right? Anyway, I was planning to do more, but I'm a little bit struggling right now, so a little headache as well. So, yeah. Anyway, I want to get to 130 today, but you know, it is what it is, right? Also, thank you for coming, guys. Thank you for coming. Yeah, I'm actually getting. I can say it a little bit if you're still here, if you care about it. I think I have autism, so I'm getting that checked as well. And tomorrow is like, I'm gonna find out if I have autism or not, so I can also tell you guys. So yeah. Anyway, I'll see you soon. Thank you for coming. Bye bye.